The stage froze. The cameras stopped. Simon Cowell broke every protocol and walked onto the stage. Nobody in the Dolby Theater had ever seen this before. Not the producers frantically signaling from backstage. Not Howie Mandel, whose jaw had literally dropped. Not the thousands watching in the audience, or the millions watching at home. Simon Cowell, the man who built his reputation on being untouchable, unreachable, unbreakable, had just stood up from the judge's table, removed his microphone, and started walking toward a contestant he had never spoken to before. The man on stage wasn't a singer preparing for his moment. He wasn't holding an instrument. He was holding a piece of paper. A handwritten note. And he was crying. His name was Daniel Mitchell. He was 54 years old. And for the past 7 years, he had been living on the streets of Los Angeles. But tonight, standing under the bright lights of America's Got Talent, Daniel wasn't there to perform. He was there to tell Simon Cowell something. Something that would change the way Simon saw himself, his show, and the people who stood in front of him. And what happened next would become one of the most unforgettable moments in television history. If you want to see how this story ends, subscribe now, because the most powerful part of this performance is still ahead. 3 months earlier, a production assistant named Lauren was walking back to her car after a late-night editing session in Burbank. It was past midnight, and the streets were empty except for a man sitting near a bus stop, wrapped in a blanket, holding a sign that read, "Not asking for money. Just hope." Lauren had walked past hundreds of people on LA streets. But something about this sign stopped her. She turned around. "Excuse me," she said. "What does that mean? Just hope?" The man looked up. His face was weathered, lined with years of sun and struggle, but his eyes were clear. "Kind." He smiled slightly. "It means I don't need your money," he said. "I just need to believe things can get better. That's all hope is, really. Believing tomorrow might be different." Lauren sat down next to him. They talked for 2 hours. Daniel told her about his life. About losing his wife to cancer. About losing his job during the recession. About losing his home, his savings, everything. But he also told her about the one thing he never lost, his belief that kindness still existed. That people still cared. That one day, someone would see him not as a homeless man, but as a human being. Before she left, Lauren handed him her card. "I work for a TV show," she said. "I don't know if this is crazy, but I think you should audition." Daniel laughed. "I can't sing. I can't dance. What would I even do?" "You'd do what you just did with me," Lauren said. "You'd tell your story." 2 weeks later, Daniel stood in line outside the Pasadena Civic Auditorium with thousands of hopefuls auditioning for America's Got Talent. He didn't have an act. He didn't have a costume. He had a story. And a letter he had written to Simon Cowell. When his name was called, Daniel walked onto that iconic stage, his hands shaking, his heart pounding. The audience murmured. He didn't look like the usual contestant. His clothes were clean but old. His posture was humble. He carried himself like someone who had learned to take up as little space as possible. Simon leaned forward. "So, Daniel, what are you here to do today?" Daniel's voice was quiet but steady. "I'm not here to sing, Mr. Cowell. I'm here to say thank you." Simon's eyebrow raised. The other judges exchanged glances. This wasn't how auditions usually started. "Thank you for what?" Simon asked. And that's when Daniel pulled out the letter. "6 months ago, I was ready to give up," Daniel said, his voice cracking. "I didn't see the point anymore. I'd lost everything. My wife. My home. My dignity. I was sitting under a bridge, and I thought, this is it. This is how it ends." The audience was completely silent now. Howie's smile had faded. Sophia's hand covered her mouth. Heidi's eyes were fixed on Daniel, unblinking. "But then," Daniel continued, "I saw a rerun of this show. On a TV in a shop window. I couldn't hear it, but I could see it. And I saw you, Mr. Cowell, give someone the golden buzzer. I saw that person's face when you did it. The hope. The disbelief. The second chance. Tears started rolling down Daniel's cheeks, but he kept going. And I thought, if that can happen, if someone like that can get a second chance, maybe I can too. Maybe I'm not done yet. So I stayed. I kept going. And I'm here to tell you that you saved my life that night, and you didn't even know it. Simon's expression had changed. The armor, the sharp wit, the walls he always kept up, they were crumbling. He wasn't moving. He was just staring at Daniel, processing every word. Daniel unfolded the letter in his hands. I wrote this to you 3 months ago. I never thought I'd get to read it to you. Go ahead, Simon said quietly. Daniel's voice shook as he read. Dear Mr. Cowell, you don't know me. But you gave me a reason to wake up tomorrow. You reminded me that the world still has magic in it. That people still matter. That hope isn't stupid. It's survival. Thank you for being tougher than life tried to make me. Thank you for showing me what strength looks like. And thank you for reminding me that I'm still here. The silence in that theater was deafening. Sophia was crying openly now. Howie had taken off his glasses, wiping his eyes. Heidi's hand was over her heart. And Simon Cowell, the man who had spent 20 years perfecting the art of being unreadable, stood up. He didn't say anything at first. He just removed his microphone, placed it carefully on the judge's table, and started walking toward the stage. Backstage, producers were frantically whispering into headsets. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't protocol. But Simon didn't care. Because sometimes, protocol doesn't matter. Sometimes, the only thing that matters is showing up for another human being. Simon climbed the stairs onto the stage. The audience held its breath. Daniel didn't know what to do. He just stood there, clutching his letter, tears streaming down his face. Simon stopped right in front of him. And then, in front of 3,000 people, in front of cameras broadcasting to millions, Simon Cowell did something no one expected. He reached out and took the letter from Daniel's hands. He looked at it. He read it again, silently. And then he folded it carefully and put it in his jacket pocket. I'm keeping this, Simon said, his voice thick with emotion. Because you're right. This show isn't just about talent. It's about hope. And you just reminded me of that. Simon turned to the audience. This man, he said, pointing to Daniel, has more courage than anyone who's walked on this stage. He didn't come here to win. He came here to survive. And that's what makes him extraordinary. The audience erupted. They weren't just clapping. They were standing, screaming, crying. It was a tidal wave of emotion that hadn't been planned, rehearsed, or produced. It was real. Simon turned back to Daniel. You said I gave you hope. But you just gave me something too. You reminded me why I do this. So thank you. And then Simon did something that stunned everyone. He walked over to the judge's table, leaned over, and without hesitation, slammed his hand down on the golden buzzer. Golden confetti exploded from the ceiling. The crowd went absolutely wild. Daniel collapsed onto his knees, sobbing, his hands covering his face. Simon stood beside him, his own eyes glistening, his hand on Daniel's shoulder. When Daniel finally stood up, Simon pulled him into a hug. A real one. Not for the cameras. Not for the show. Just two men, standing in a storm of gold, understanding each other in a way words couldn't capture. Subscribe and share this story, because moments like this deserve to be remembered. After the show, Daniel's life changed in ways he never imagined. The episode went viral before it even aired. News outlets picked up the story. Donations poured in. Offers for jobs, housing, support. But more than that, Daniel became a symbol. A reminder that hope isn't something you find. It's something you choose. Simon kept that letter. He framed it. And according to people close to him, it hangs in his office to this day. On difficult days, when the pressure of television, of judging, of maintaining an image gets too heavy, Simon reads that letter. And it reminds him why any of this matters. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the ratings. It's not about the viral moments. It's about the people who show up with nothing but their story and the belief that someone, somewhere, will see them. Daniel never made it to the finals. But he didn't need to. He had already won. He got his life back. His dignity back. His hope back. And Simon? Simon got something too. He got a reminder that beneath the critiques, the zingers, the sharp observations, there's a man who genuinely cares. A man who, when it really counts, doesn't walk away. He walks forward. That night, after the cameras stopped rolling, after the audience went home, Simon stayed behind. He found Daniel backstage, sitting quietly, still processing everything that had happened. "You okay?" Simon asked. Daniel looked up and smiled. "I'm better than okay, Mr. Cowell. I'm alive." Simon sat down beside him. Not as a judge. Not as a celebrity. Just as a man who had been moved by something bigger than television. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. Some connections transcend words. "Can I tell you something?" Simon finally said. "When I started this show, I thought I knew what talent was. I thought it was about the perfect voice, the perfect performance, the perfect moment. But you just taught me I was wrong." Daniel turned to look at him, confused. "How did I do that?" "Because talent isn't just what you can do," Simon said. "It's who you are when everything has been taken from you. It's choosing to stand up when staying down would be easier. That's the real talent. Survival with dignity." Daniel's eyes welled up again. "I almost didn't come today. This morning, I stood outside those doors for an hour, convincing myself I belonged here. That I wasn't wasting everyone's time. You changed this show tonight," Simon said firmly. "You changed me. And tomorrow, when people watch this, you're going to change them too. That's not a waste of time. That's legacy." 3 weeks later, the episode aired. Within hours, it became the most watched AGT clip in the show's history. Over 200 million views. Trending in 47 countries. But the numbers didn't capture what really happened. They didn't capture the emails that poured into the network. From people in hospital beds who said Daniel's story gave them strength to fight another day. From teenagers who decided not to give up. From parents who called their estranged children. From strangers who started seeing homeless people differently. One email stood out. It came from a woman named Catherine in Ohio. She wrote, "My son has been homeless for 2 years. I haven't spoken to him because I was ashamed. But after watching Daniel's story, I realized shame is a luxury he can't afford. I found him yesterday. We're getting help together. Thank you for reminding me that my son is still my son." Simon had that email printed and framed. It sits next to Daniel's letter in his office. But here's what most people don't know. Daniel didn't just get his moment and fade away. Simon made sure of that. Quietly, without cameras or press releases, Simon connected Daniel with a housing program. He personally called in favors. Got Daniel into transitional housing. Helped him find steady work with a production company that needed someone with life experience to consult on authentic storytelling. 6 months after that night, Daniel sent Simon a text. Just 4 words. "I got my own apartment." Simon's reply was just as brief. "Proud of you, mate." That exchange never made headlines. It wasn't designed to. Because the real measure of that night wasn't the viral moment, or the golden buzzer. It was what happened after the lights went down. When Simon chose to follow through. When he proved that his emotion wasn't just for the cameras. A year later, Simon was back in that same theater for another season of auditions. Same stage. Same lights. But something had shifted in him. He found himself listening differently now. Looking beyond the performance to the person. Asking different questions. Caring about different things. During a particularly long day of auditions, a young singer walked on stage, clearly nervous. She froze mid-song, apologized, and started to walk off. "Wait!" Simon called out. The girl stopped. Why are you leaving? Because I messed up, she said, her voice small. I wasted your time. Simon shook his head. You didn't waste anything. Come back. Try again. And this time, don't sing for us. Sing for the person you were before you walked into this room. That person deserves to be heard. The girl came back. She sang. She didn't make it through, but as she left the stage, she was smiling. Because someone had seen her. Really seen her. Howie leaned over to Simon after she left. That was generous. No, Simon said quietly. That was necessary. Because that's what Daniel's story taught him. That sometimes the most important thing you can give someone isn't a yes or a no. It's the reminder that they matter. That their story, their struggle, their hope, it all counts. Even if the world never sees it. Even if it doesn't make the final cut. It still matters. Simon never forgot that lesson. And he never forgot Daniel. They still text occasionally. Not often. But enough. Enough for Simon to know that Daniel is okay. That he's still fighting. Still choosing hope. And enough for Daniel to know that the night he walked onto that stage wasn't just a moment. It was a turning point. For him. For Simon. And for everyone who watched and realized that hope isn't a luxury. It's oxygen. And sometimes, all someone needs is permission to breathe. This is the story that America's Got Talent never aired in full. This is the moment that changed Simon Cowell. Not because it made headlines. But because it made him human. It stripped away the persona and revealed what was underneath. A man who, when confronted with raw, unfiltered humanity, chose not to turn away. He chose to walk forward. Share this story. Subscribe to this channel. Because the world needs more hope. And stories like this? They're proof that hope isn't just real. It's contagious. One person at a time. One moment at a time. One choice at a time.